Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. It's interesting. We get a lot of feedback and questions about certain topics.
Yeah.
And one that keeps popping up is this whole birthright citizenship thing here in the U.S.
It's a hot topic for sure. I
Yeah.
mean, it gets at the core of what it means to be American.
Definitely. And there's so much to unpack there.
Mm.
So we figured, you know what? Let's do a deep dive into this.
Yeah, let's break it down.
Exactly. We'll start with, what it is.
Yeah.
Where did this idea even come from?
We'll look at like a major turning point in history. There's a big Supreme Court case that really solidified this, right? Even for kids of immigrants.
And then we have to look at where things stand now.
Yeah.
Right? Like there are some groups trying to change things about birthright citizenship.
Yeah, there's legal battles going on.
Exactly. So get ready. We're going to cover the history, the arguments, both sides, and what this all means in the real world.
It's going to be a deep dive for sure.
All right. So first things first, what exactly are we talking about when we say birthright citizenship?
Basically, it means that anyone born on U.S. soil automatically becomes a U.S. citizen.
No matter what.
Pretty much. It doesn't matter if your parents are citizens themselves or legal residents or even undocumented immigrants. If you're born here, you're a citizen.
So it's all about where you're born.
Exactly.
And this whole thing is spelled out in the Constitution, right?
Yeah, in 14th Amendment.
Okay. So the 14th Amendment, what does it actually say?
Well, the key part is this. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside.
Okay. I can see how some of that language,
Yeah.
subject to the jurisdiction thereof, could lead to different interpretations.
Oh, yeah, definitely. But before we get into all that, let's take a step back. Look at the history behind the 14th Amendment. It was adopted in 1868, right after the Civil War.
So it was all about granting citizenship to formerly enslaved African Americans.
Right. It was a huge turning point, overruling that awful Dred Scott v. Sanford decision, which had said African Americans couldn't be citizens.
Wow. So the 14th Amendment was really about making sure everyone born in the U.S. had a right to citizenship.
Exactly. Equal rights for all.
Now fast forward a bit to the late 1800s. We have this really interesting case, United States v. Wong Kim Ark. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. This guy, Wong Kim Ark, he was born in San Francisco to Chinese immigrants.
Okay.
He traveled to China, and when he tried to come back, he was denied entry. They said he wasn't a citizen.
Wait, he was born here though, right?
Exactly. That's the crazy part.
No.
And his case, it went all the way up to the Supreme Court.
Wow.
And the court ruled in his favor. They said the 14th Amendment means what it says. Birthright citizenship applies to everyone born on U.S. soil, no matter who their parents are.
That must have been a huge win for people who support birthright citizenship.
Oh, yeah. Huge. It really cemented this, right, in law. And it's been the precedent for over a century.
Okay, so we've got the legal foundation. Now, obviously, things have gotten a bit more complicated in recent years.
Yeah.
We're hearing more and more people questioning birthright citizenship. So why is this principle, which seems so well established now, facing these challenges?
Well, there are a few different reasons, actually. I mean, like, one of the big concerns is this thing called birth tourism.
Birth tourism.
Yeah. It's this idea that some people come to the U.S. specifically to have children here.
Oh, I see. So their kids will automatically be citizens.
Exactly. And critics say, that kind of undermines the whole idea of U.S. citizenship.
Yeah, I guess if it's seen as a way to get around the system.
Right. And they also argue that it puts a strain on resources, more people using schools and hospitals and things.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
What about the argument that it encourages illegal immigration?
Oh, yeah. That's a big one. People who want to limit birthright citizenship, they say it's like a magnet. It encourages people to come here illegally because they know their kids will be citizens.
But I imagine people who support birthright citizenship would say it actually helps with integration, right?
Absolutely. They argue that it prevents this underclass of non-citizens, people who are stuck on the margins of society.
And that could lead to problems down the road.
Exactly. Crime, poverty, all sorts of things.
And there's also the argument that it's just the right thing to do. It aligns with American values.
Yeah.
Like equality and opportunity.
Right. They say everyone born here should have a fair shot. It shouldn't matter what their parent status is.
So we've got some strong points on both sides of this debate.
Definitely. It's not a simple issue.
Yeah.
There are valid concerns and arguments on both sides.
And that's why it's important to understand all the angles, right?
Absolutely. You got to look at the whole picture.
Okay. So earlier you mentioned some attempts to change birthright citizenship. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Sure. There have been quite a few proposals over the years, some trying to get rid of birthright citizenship altogether, others trying to change it somehow.
Like that Birthright Citizenship Act of 2021 we talked about earlier.
Exactly. That one tried to redefine that phrase in the 14th Amendment, subject to the jurisdiction. They wanted to exclude kids of undocumented immigrants and people on temporary visas.
So basically, only kids with at least one parent who's a citizen, a lawful permanent resident, or in the military would automatically be citizens.
That's right. And that bill didn't pass. But it shows you that there's a real push to change things.
And then we have President Trump's executive order from just this week trying to limit birthright citizenship.
Right. It's facing some legal challenges, though, so I'll have to see what happens with that.
Yeah, it's all still up in the air.
Exactly. It's a really dynamic situation, and it shows how this issue is still being debated and fought over.
So it sounds like the future of birthright citizenship is pretty uncertain at this point.
Yeah, it is.
Wow.
These legal battles are probably going to keep going, and the political arguments don't seem to be going away anytime soon.
It makes you think, even something that seems like a core part of America can be challenged and reinterpreted.
Absolutely. It really highlights how things change over time. Social norms, political ideas, even legal interpretations.
And this whole debate about birthright citizenship, it's really a story about America itself, right?
Yeah, I think so. It's about figuring out what it means to be American in today's world.
Okay, so where do we go from here? What should people be paying attention to as this story develops?
Well, the big thing to watch right now is what happens with the legal challenges to President Trump's executive order.
Because that could have a major impact.
Definitely. Those court decisions could shape the whole debate.
And beyond the courts, what else should we be looking at?
Well, Congress is key. Are they going to try to pass new laws about birthright citizenship? Will they try to strengthen it or weaken it?
And what role will public opinion play?
Oh, that's huge. How people feel about this issue. It's going to have a big influence on what politicians do.
Absolutely. So we've got to stay informed and engaged. And, it's not just about the politics and the laws,
Right.
right? We have to think about the people who are actually affected by all of this.
Exactly. It's easy to get lost in the legal arguments. But at the end of the day, we're talking about real lives, real families.
If birthright citizenship were to change, if it was limited or even ended altogether, it would have a huge impact on so many people.
Oh, absolutely. Everything from education and healthcare to jobs and social services. I mean, think about it. People might be afraid to even access those services if they're worried about their status or their kids' futures.
It's really striking how divisive this whole issue is. It seems like it touches on these deep anxieties about what it means to be American.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's not just about the law. It's about culture and identity and how our country is changing.
And it's all tied up with these bigger debates, too.
Yeah.
Right? About immigration, national security, what it means to be American in this day and age.
Exactly. It's like a microcosm of all the challenges we're facing as a nation, trying to understand our history, trying to embrace diversity, trying to find common ground on these really tough issues.
So after all this deep diving, what's the takeaway for our listeners? What should they be thinking about?
Well, I think the first thing is to recognize that this is a complex issue. There are strong arguments on both sides. You have to understand the history, the legal precedents, and the potential consequences of any changes.
And we have to talk about it in a way that's respectful and open-minded, right? We need to listen to each other.
Absolutely. We can't just shout each other down. We have to really try to understand where people are coming from.
Because in the end, this is about more than just legal technicalities. It's about people. It's about families. It's about communities.
It's about who we are as a country, what we believe in, what values we want to stand for.
And those are big questions. We need to think about them carefully.
Yeah.
And with compassion.
Well said. I agree.
So to everyone listening, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into birthright citizenship. It's a complicated issue, but hopefully you found this discussion helpful.
And we hope you'll keep learning about it, keep thinking about it, stay involved in the conversation.
Because this debate is far from over, and it's going to have a real impact on our country.
If you want to share your thoughts, head over to our YouTube channel, News and Views. We'd love to hear from you.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Until next time, keep diving deep.